So if people do their homework, they can actually go to this election. Their vote will count, and they can send messages, even though they may not necessarily get the result that they're after, but they can definitely send a message because particularly, well, all the major parties, the primary vote's key for them. If they're not getting the primary vote, i.e. the people saying they're number one,
Yes.
They're going to struggle to make government. And I think that's probably Morrison's issue at the moment. He's increased to 35. I think that figure needs to be more like a 40, doesn't it?
3 years ago this week, I wrote an article for The Spectator in which I said, look, I reckon Morrison's going to win this election, and I'm not a fan of Scott Morrison, and I wasn't 3 years ago. Okay, but and this is when all the geniuses are saying shortened one, and all my analysis was based on, look, the incumbent prime minister is usually behind in the polls. Okay, now, but in the lead up to an election, that gap narrows, and very often they sort of just squeak over the line. Okay, John Howard was often behind, Bob Hawke was often behind, but they would squeak over. But there is an indicator which tells us when a government will actually lose, and that is if they're 3 months before an election and they are seriously behind, which is the situation right now. So 3 years ago, all the experts are saying Shorten's won. I was saying, look, Morrison's going into this campaign. It's like the polls were typically 47-53 in Shorten's favour. I said, that's not enough. When people get closer and closer, and that's exactly what happened. Morrison won. Now the gap is about sort of 12 points. Consistently, there's been about 4 polls this year, 3 news polls, at least 1 essential poll, consistently showing a big gap. Now you can't pick up that big gap, except of course we have this situation in Ukraine, and that's going to sort of freak some people out, rightly or wrongly, and that's a big factor in the election. It certainly is. The election was held this Saturday.
Yeah, well, we've had a discussion offline where I sort of said that I made some good money backing Scott Morrison as well last election, and
oh, good.
And that was courtesy of my father, who was a political man. He was an ALP man, but he always said that oppositions don't win elections,
yes.
Governments lose them. And
yes.
so as soon as I saw Bill Shorten doing what he did, I said, well, that's crazy. He's picking wars with everyone.
Yes.
He can't win. But they've learnt their lesson. So they're basically not saying anything this time,
yes.
which is exactly what Shorten should have done. He should have gone overseas for 3 months. But anyway,
yes.
so I think Morrison's in trouble. To me, I'm really praying that the Senate, the balance of power is held by the freedom-friendly parties that we're talking about.